All right, take that gum out and get ready to roll. This is Keith Niebuhr with Gators Online. I'm joined by Nick Delatorre, our team senior beat reporter, and Corey Bender, who covers recruiting for us. And I think somebody's got their, let's see, does somebody have their YouTube channel up in the background? Okay.
You're good. We're good now.
We are good to go. So, again, I'm Keith Niebuhr, Nick Delatorre, Corey Bender, all of Gators Online. We're going to break down yesterday's big Tennessee-Florida win. Tennessee-Florida game, Florida win. The Gators jump out to a big lead and then hold on in the second half for a 29-16 win over number 11 Tennessee. Now the Gators are ranked. So that win was significant for a lot of reasons, and we'll get into all that, team recruiting. But just your general thoughts. It was just a electric day at the Swamp. It couldn't have gone any better than it did for the Florida Gators. Nick, why don't you go first, and then Corey will jump over to you, man.
Yeah, I think the game plan had to be Florida could not keep up with Tennessee if Tennessee's really running the way they want to. I think the game plan, and I said this to you, Keith, during the game, this is exactly what Florida needs to do. And that first drive was 14 plays, took almost 8 minutes off the clock right away. If the kicker makes a kick, you're up 3 points. But Florida's game was to have long drives that hopefully got points, but that kept Tennessee's offense off the field. And Graham Mertz in the Florida offense executed that perfectly. Austin Armstrong might be the real deal because Florida's offense held Tennessee along with the defense. Florida's defense held Tennessee to the third fewest plays that Josh Heupel's offense has ever run. And that's aided also to the offense. But I think Austin Armstrong's game plan was great. They committed another guy down into the box, make Joe Milton, kind of what we said all week, make Joe Milton beat you with his arm. And if Joe Milton was going to go out there and throw 5 touchdowns and 500 yards, all right, fine. We can live losing that way, but we're not going to let Tennessee beat us on the ground. Florida committed to stopping Tennessee's running game, which had been really, really good. And I think what you got was a Gator team that believed they could win, and I think a Gator team that needed to win to kind of get that momentum.
All right, Corey, let's jump over to you. Just your thoughts now. Corey, you and I watched the game. We sat next to each other. We obviously saw what Nick saw, but then after the game, when fans are rushing out of the stadium and Nick's running down to interview Billy Napier, you went to go get some recruits. And Corey, I think you're on mute right now, so make sure you get that off. But Corey, just general thoughts, and we'll dig into this a little bit later, but general thoughts from talking to recruits. What did they seem to think about what they saw yesterday, both in the stands and on the field?
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of surprises. A lot of kids knew Florida had a lot of talent, a lot of young talent. A lot of really good recruiting classes over the last couple of years. But I think the biggest thing was a lot of kids were surprised, and I think the biggest thing they mentioned too was Graham Mertz. I think everyone knew he had experience, and everyone knew he's a guy who can come in and he could surprise a lot of people. But I think it's been more than that. I think he's actually played very, very well. And I think his experience really is playing a big role these last 2 weeks as far as just kind of orchestrating the offense. But, Florida's really, their identity is running the ball. They have a really, really, really strong duo. So when they can start running the ball really well, that opens up stuff for Graham Mertz in the offense. And, Eugene Wilson, I know he went down with the injury, but he's so poised, and for a freshman that just got there in June, I mean, it's incredible how fast he's been able to pick up the offense too. So I think there's a lot to digest from this win, but it was definitely all very
But Corey, what were the recruits telling you afterwards?
On top of that too, I think with Florida right now, I think you have some kids in the 2025 class like Solomon Thomas. It's kind of a wait and see. People know that was a big emotional victory for Florida, but it's kind of a wait and see as well with them. But I think overall, a lot of kids like LJ McCray, a lot of kids were very intrigued and just very surprised. I think a lot of kids were just very pleasantly surprised.
And what an environment. I was trying to rack my brain during the game, because like in the 2019 season, that Alabama game or the Auburn game, excuse me, like it got crazy loud when the Michael P. Ryan broke that run. And there's games throughout, like the 11 years I've been here where there's really loud moments, but the stadium was just relentless yesterday. And unless Florida's offense was on the field, they were loud. So I think it's a great environment. And listen, when was the last time we had a game in the Swamp and you guys were writing a commitment story right after? Like the environment was that good that a guy can like get the trip, the environment, and get kind of lost in it and want to commit right away. I think it's been a while since we've gotten that kind of atmosphere in the Swamp.
I think the timing, I want to add this too. I thought the timing was perfect too, because I know a lot of people, I picked Tennessee to win this game. So I also have to kind of accept that L. But Florida really dedicated a lot to this visitors list and a lot of big name kids, and a lot of commits were in town too. So many people thought if Florida kind of laid an egg and, really had a disappointing performance, how would that affect the class? It's been the complete opposite. You see a lot of these kids who were in attendance last night have all said, hey, I'm locked in, I'm a Gator. So now the tension goes, obviously the season's still early, but can they maintain this? But from a recruit standpoint, all these commits are locked in, and it's definitely a really positive reviews.
All right, again, I'm Keith Niebuhr of Gators Online. That's Nick Delatorre up on the top. On the bottom, Corey Bender. We're going to talk Gators football for 45 minutes or so. And I know there's some people trying to jump in. I don't know. Somehow, maybe our link got sent out, but it's going to be just the three of us. I don't know what all these technical issues. But, if you like what we're doing, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and obviously leave a comment. Let's go over some of the stats real quick, guys, because and here we go. I get the phone ringing as I'm trying to do this. It's never ending. But Florida, 21 first downs, Tennessee, 17. Now, Tennessee had more yards, 387 to 349. But it was one of those games where Florida got such a big lead, 26-7 at the half, that a lot of those yards were kind of hollow yards. In other words, this reminded me, and I mentioned this in the postgame show last year, guys. In 1996, when Florida won its first national title, Florida jumped out to a 35-0 lead at Tennessee, 35-0. It ended up being 35-29, and Tennessee ended up with twice as many yards as Florida, as in that pursuit to chase that score that Florida had. So similar to that, Florida, 166 passing yards. We'll get into Graham Mertz's statistics in a little bit. 183 rushing yards for Florida. Steady, only 5 penalties, and none of them were really crucial. Time of possession, which Nick brought up earlier, 37 minutes, 28 seconds for Florida, 22 minutes, 32 seconds for Tennessee. But back to that rushing total, guys, 183 for Florida, of which 172 were from Trevor Etienne. Only 100 for Tennessee. That's significant, especially, Nick, when you go back to that Utah game when Florida had 13 yards rushing. Now, that included sack yardage, I think, but 13 yards rushing, 180, what did I just say? 183 last night. The offensive line, much maligned offensive line, only a few penalties last night, although ironically or coincidentally, there was a false start on the first play of the game, which was kind of funny. But after that, pretty clean game. Blocked very well in the run game. Not as great in the passing game, but good enough. And Graham Mertz obviously showed some real escapability last night. But Nick, the Florida offensive line, we got to give them some credit, right?
Yeah, I think they were just okay. Like Graham Mertz made them look good in pass pro. And listen, he's not Anthony
okay, what about the run blocking though? You think that was just okay?
Yeah. No, I think Trevor Etienne. I think both Montrell and Trevor are good, but Montrell didn't have the yards, ends up getting hurt because he doesn't have that same burst. He was getting hit in the back, in the backfield. So I think Florida's offensive line, you're working Kingsley back in. Kingsley and Jake Slaughter kind of went 50-50 with reps. And I think there's still room to improve. And you'll see that as they get playing together. I was really, really impressed with Graham Mertz last night. I didn't think he showed great pocket presence in Salt Lake City. Last night, when a guy was coming blindside or front side, he was moving, able to escape, just absolutely snatched somebody's soul with that pump fake when he ran for a first down. So I thought the offensive line was okay. They have room to improve. They were certainly good enough. And I'd give a lot of credit to, Trevor Etienne for breaking tackles, finding space. He's a really patient runner. And I said that last year. I thought it was really impressive for a freshman to be that patient. But I think, I'm not giving Florida's offensive line a game ball, but they weren't bad in my opinion.
Okay. All right. We're going to be bouncing around. Corey, we're going to get to you for recruiting because Corey's got to get back to work, man. We're not going to let him goof around with us all night here. Corey, first question here. What's up with LJ McCray and Zay Mincy? LJ McCray's 4-star defensive lineman. Zay Mincy's 4-star cornerback, both from Daytona Beach, Mainland. Both were at the game yesterday. I just chatted a little bit with LJ McCray, and he said, hey, that was a one-of-a-kind experience at the Swamp. And it kind of validates what the staff at Florida has told him. the staff has said, this is what we're going to do. That's what they did. So proof of concept is kind of sinking in with LJ McCray. He's going to probably try to go to games to Auburn and Georgia coming up in the next few weeks. Then he's officially visiting Florida State the weekend of October 7th. And then birthday's October 18th. And he wants to have a commitment sometime around then. But both these guys, we think Florida obviously very much in it. Maybe Florida, Georgia, FSU for McCray. Maybe Florida, Miami for Mincy. Corey, any take on these two guys?
Yeah, I think it goes back just what I was saying with the timing. I just thought you need to get these priority guys on board. You know, they've been to campus before, but seeing that atmosphere inside the swamp is a one of a kind thing, like you said, what McCray told you. So I thought the timing was perfect. I think Florida could not have had a better showing for all these guys. I thought the defensive line, they really got after it. Tyreek Sapp, a lot of good energy level from those guys. So being at the front row as a recruit, you can kind of dissect, you know, their projected positional fit with Florida. So I thought obviously it was perfect timing. And I think as far as schools involved, I think overall, I think it's FSU's school. I'm kind of circled with McCray. I think Florida and FSU are right there near the top with Georgia as well. And then with Mincy, Florida and Miami. And I think Mincy's the interesting one. He's going to take numerous visits. It's going to be interesting if an Alabama or FSU kind of breaks in the back door and kind of, you know, gains traction with Florida and Miami. So it's kind of a wait and see, but I definitely like where Florida stands with both.
Like I said, we're going to be bouncing around a little bit because we're trying to cover numerous topics. But before we let Corey get back to his life here, Corey, Florida got a big commitment yesterday, a guy that you and I have written about a lot. You have said many times, I think this guy is on commit watch, a guy that we need to keep track of, and that's 4-star 2025 running back Waltez Clark of Tampa Plant, right down the road from me. I just went and saw him last week. So we kind of were starting to read those tea leaves and figured that was a guy we needed to go see in person. And it obviously paid off. We got him on the phone last night. He said, hey, I'm getting ready to commit right now. I'm going to Florida. It's done. And I'm waiting for Billy Napier. And I'm on the phone with them while I'm in the press box watching the TV of Nick at the press conference with Billy Napier. It's kind of this surreal life going on there. So we actually got wind of it before Billy Napier. Now, normally you would wait. You would wait before putting that out there. But we knew that he was obviously a guy Florida wanted. And he said, I even called him back a couple minutes later. I said, what do you want me to do? Because once a kid goes into the office with Billy, you don't know how long it's going to take. He said, hey, put it out now. It's done. I'm going to Florida. So we put it out. And that was a big commitment. The first commitment in the 2025 class for the Florida Gators, a guy that plays receiver and running back for Tampa Plant, actually plays more receiver from what I can see right now because that's where they need him. School that's been pretty good to Florida historically, the great Lee McGriff, who we're going to have a show with later this week in the next couple of days. He went there. Pete Alonso, Nick's guy, Jack Taglioni, another guy from Tampa Plant. Sorry, we're getting text messages. It's been Tampa guys. Yeah, it's been just, I don't know about y'all, but my phone has just been blowing up the last couple of days with Gator fans just going nuts. But before we let you go, Corey, I wanted to get your impressions. What kind of player is getting, you're an evaluator, what kind of player is Florida getting in Waltez Clark, and why should Gator fans be excited?
Yeah, I think one thing, too, that doesn't get brought up enough is the competition level, too. So Waltez Clark, he's productive. He's a bigger back. But he also has that field stretching speed too. So, you know, Tampa Plant, you know, year in and year out always had these high level Power 5 guys, and, you know, Waltez is next in line. But when you kind of see him in person, he passes the eye test. He's about almost 6'1". Really good character too. Kind of seems like a really good locker room guy, and a guy I think he wants to be at Florida. It's that offer was different with him from the beginning, and he's a guy from in-state, so it means a lot to him. So getting Florida on board, it kind of fits his style. He does a good job of navigating through clutter too. So I think overall with Florida, yeah, I think they got the top guy on the board at running back. It's a deep class too at running back with Florida. I mean, they've offered several guys, but when you kind of look at Waltez, he was prioritized from the start. And, you know, I know if you're Jabbar Jaluk, you're definitely, you know, brimming with joy this whole weekend.
Brimming with joy. Okay.
How you like that one?
Oh, did one of you just sneeze or cough? What was that?
I don't know what that was.
That sounds like a Nick Delatorre cough. All right.
That's me, bro. I'm dying. I'm sick. I'm
Corey,
glad I sat next to you last night, Keith.
I thought someone hacked our video chat. That's what I thought happened.
Corey, one more question. Yeah. I thought that was it, but here's one. You see the question up on the screen. Anything on Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng? He's the standout linebacker from Bradenton IMG 2025. So he's a junior. He was at the game yesterday. What did he tell you about his experience?
Oh, he loved it. I know he's going to take his time with recruiting, but Florida right now, I think they have the most momentum with him. And a lot of that's just a relationship in Gainesville. Jay Bateman, Brandon Spikes, who's on staff, he's making a huge impact with him. Cannon Gibbs, he's another assistant staff member on defense. So the relationships in Gainesville are extremely strong. He's near the very top of the board for Jay Bateman. I think if you're a Florida fan, you just got to keep getting him on campus. He's going to take his visits, and it's a pretty wide open recruitment, but when you look at the RPM, Florida's leading, and if today was decision day, I'd probably give Florida a slight edge. So I think
RPM being, sorry, I cut you off there, Corey. RPM being the On3 recruiting prediction machine. We should point out this young man, Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, I believe he's from Virginia originally.
Yeah,
right?
Virginia. Yep.
And so is more texts, more tweets, all this stuff. Corey, we're going to have you track down what's going on here.
I got you.
I think he's from Virginia. Well, Jay Bateman's got all those Virginia ties, Florida's linebackers. Yep. So that could pay off. All right, Corey Bender, Gators Online. Make sure you check out all his work. The guy's written about a dozen updates on recruits just already from last night. Go to GatorsOnline.com.
The CB1000.
That's right. And you can get in right now. $1 gets you in 1 month. I mean, unlimited premium content you're only going to get from On3. So, and Gators Online. So, Corey, you take care, man. We appreciate you stopping by. Go do some work. Track down this thing that Nick just sent us so I don't have to. Okay.
Yep. I appreciate you guys. Yep.
All right. Yeah. Take care, Corey. Great stuff from Corey Bender. I mean, that guy, he just writes and writes and writes and writes. And actually, we both left the press box at 2 a.m. last night. We both lived down in Tampa. He drove home. He made it all the way. He's a man. I was like a little child, went to a rest area south of Ocala, went to the restroom, and then decided to take a 4-hour nap in my car. But great stuff from Corey. So, Nick, back to this, and I'm just going to be putting up comments here, and we're gonna really focus on the game as the text messages are just flying through. That's one thing Corey does that does drive me nuts. He text messaging while he knows I can't keep track of more than one thing at one time, but he's texting me right now. Nick, what was the best thing Florida did last night? And then I'm going to ask you what the worst thing, because we already kind of know what that is, but the best thing Florida did last night, the thing that impressed you, a guy that's covered this program for 10 years, what impressed you the most last night?
Yeah, I think you knew just their execution, and that maybe sounds like coach speak, but I had questions about Florida being able to execute. I heard that Tennessee led the nation in sacks and top 2 in tackles for loss. I think Tennessee fans forgot who they had played and the level of competition, who you have played to steal a line from Billy Napier. It's all relative. So the thing for me was you knew that you had to control the clock. You needed to win the time of possession. You needed to be able to run the ball. Tennessee has a very good run defense. They've been very good since Josh Heupel's been there. Didn't matter. If you couldn't run the ball successfully and you couldn't sustain drives, you were probably going to lose the game or get boat raced. And Florida was able to come in with the game plan that probably Tennessee knew that's the only way Florida can win the game. And they executed it to perfection. No notes on the execution of the game plan. And the worst is special teams.
Here's negative Nick chiming in, by the way. Let you get there, Nick.
Okay, so the coaches, the individual position coaches. If you're like Austin Armstrong, listen, Corey Raymond's the defensive backs coach, but Austin Armstrong coaches the safeties. Austin Armstrong will give you the depth chart for the safeties. Corey Raymond is making the depth chart for the corners. Jay Bateman, the linebackers. I don't know what Chris Couch does at practice. Adam Mahalik, awesome story, walked on. He had the worst season since Austin Harden did in 2015 last year. Then you start him again this year, and he's bad again. I don't know if either of those 2 kicks last night got blocked. I hope to God they did, because they were terrible. They never had a chance of going in. Trey Smack comes in, and his first PAT goes into the second deck. Like the ball is just shot out of a cannon. How are you looking at these 2 kickers in practice in the spring, in the summer, and in the fall, and going with the other guy? Like, I don't know what we're doing. And the kicking, the special teams coach isn't like the personal kicking coach. They don't really know the intricacies of the swings. They're really more just who's doing the best, and then we're going to scheme stuff and make plays on punt return, kick return, punt block. But watching Trace Mack finally get an opportunity, and granted, he was hurt last year, but watching him finally get an opportunity, the difference in the way that the ball comes off their feet, like, what are we doing here?
It's like the difference between
Me and you throwing a football.
Me and you hitting a 9-iron, basically. Mine
goes
going 165. Oh, yeah, sure. It's funny. Two things here. It kind of reminds me of Felipe Franks starting above Kyle Trask, right? And then the kick again. You don't wish that to happen to anybody. You kick it right into. It looked like the was it the PAT? It looked like it just got kicked almost right into the line. Almost. It just wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
But kickers do have highs and lows. They do have ups and downs, and it's important that Florida does not cast aside Adam. Right? It's important because they may need him. Right?
Tom Hanks, baby, Castaway.
No, I think that you have to make sure somehow they got to get his confidence back, because if the other guy gets in a slump, I mean, it's like having a hot goaltender and not looks wise, but which goalkeeper?
Tell us more, Keith.
Yeah, which goalkeeper
how dreamy was he?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, I tell you, but you ride that guy through the playoffs in playoff hockey, right? The guy that kind of gets it going. And so kicking, ideally you'd like to have one kicker, but historically that's what Florida's had. But there have been seasons, Nick, before you were born, where they had a short kicker and a long kicker. I mean, point being is, you may need that other guy at some point. So somehow in practice, they're going to have to build up his confidence. But by and large, the special teams, I mean, you're talking about missing kicks, punts that are not going as far as you want, some shanks that you sometimes don't see in an entire season. You're not getting a ton of return yards. Now, it's hard to get return yards. I get that. You haven't blocked any kicks. So really, you don't have a lot to hang your hat on there in terms of special teams. No. And that's okay if you don't have the blunders. Hey, we're just getting by on special teams. The punting isn't great, but the net punting is good, that kind of thing. But already now week 3, and there's been blunders, there's been misses, so when is that going to stop? Or is this just something that Florida's going to have to deal with? I mean, these things sometimes don't go away. Sometimes they do. Sometimes it's like a cold. You shake it fast, and the next cold you have for 2 months. So we don't know. We don't know. But hey, Nick, I got to ask you. I had a Tennessee fan telling me Friday, a good friend of mine, that she's like, oh, I like this Tennessee team, and they've look what and I go, but they haven't really played anybody. And she said, well, Virginia is pretty good, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm like, are you kidding me? Well, after Maryland beat Virginia by 4 touchdowns yesterday, they're 0-3. And so they really hadn't played anybody. And when you really look at it now nationwide, there aren't many teams that have played the schedule Florida's played, quite frankly. South Carolina, I guess you could say, right? But not many. Two challenging teams, already on the schedule as Florida gets into that next stretch of games. But obviously they did a lot of things right, Nick, but you mentioned those long drives. And I still contend they did have the one chunk play, the big 62-yard run from Trevor Etienne. I still contend they're going to need more of those, because they had to convert a lot of third downs in that first half yesterday. And if you start relying too much on that, there's going to be a game where it doesn't work. You know what I mean? So I don't know. But overall, I think the offense does seem to be making strides. And, obviously losing Eugene Wilson was significant. And you want to give a quick update on him for anybody that might not know? Eugene Wilson, freshman receiver.
Yeah, Eugene Wilson. I think it's more of a bone bruise. The best news you got from Eugene Wilson is that he didn't break his collarbone. He broke his collarbone last year, missed some time during his senior season in Tampa. So he's a guy who's just a little bit smaller. And listen, bones are going to break. You can't lift it. No matter how many weights you lift, you're not going to, it's not going to help you breaking a bone or not breaking a bone. But he is a guy I'd like to see put some size on. But the good news is the bone's not broken. A broken clavicle, a broken collarbone could take you out for 4 to 6 weeks. And that's, getting into Georgia. And I think the biggest thing that I like to see early was just forcing the ball to Eugene Wilson. And we had said, like, hey, you need to get him more involved. Yes, his play counts are going up, but you need to get him the ball. And Florida, they were playing with an offensive line, Graham Mertz and Eugene Wilson on that first drive. It was just like, hey, where's Eugene? We're going to get him the ball no matter what. Force the issue. He's a special player. It would have been really bad for Florida in the offense if he would have actually sustained the injury, but I think he'll probably be day to day. As the bone bruise, it's probably just a pain tolerance thing for him now.
Nick, I like the fact that they were using him early on that perimeter stuff because I really think that helped open up on these counter runs. You know what I mean, inside. Yeah. And so I thought that was interesting. Everybody hates bubble screens and those little quick things and those short passes to there's a
you told me, you were telling me like those little tosses in front. Graham Mertz is just getting quarterback rating, just flying up. I'm like, that's not a pass. You're like, yeah, it is. I'm like, it's not a pass. And you're like, well, it goes down as one. I'm like, that's the easiest way to get your completion percentage up. Just shoving it from me to the computer screen right here.
Nick, I'm my brain. I mean, I didn't
Devin
sleep.
Moore was just cramping at the end of the game. Okay. He went down. But yeah, whenever you see a guy down and they're like holding the leg up, pushing an ankle back, they're just trying to stretch out a cramp. They ran out with the Gatorade bottles. He's good. I don't think any Gators were ejected. We'll find out tomorrow if the league office goes back and finds the Micah Mazuka Boxing Academy.
Nick, let's do a reenactment here real quick. Of the,
I learned that Micah Mazuka's left-handed from his boxing stance. He was left-handed. He threw a solid straight right.
I'm sorry, that was hilarious. That was
also
go ahead.
Not smart. What are we doing? Throwing closed fist punches at helmets. I do appreciate it. Listen, it was a cheap shot. So the whole situation.
What a weird ending.
Billy calls a timeout. Hey, let's enjoy this. Not only does Billy call a timeout, they stayed in their huddle and took a delay of game after the timeout. That probably makes Tennessee mad. Now the Tennessee players are like, there's 19 seconds left. Let's go. Let's get out of here. This sucks. We're losing. Let's get out of here. And Billy's like, no, timeout. Delay of game. Enjoy that. So Josh Heupel then is probably thinking, hey, we're going to call a timeout. We're going to make you punt it. You don't have to punt it. Graham Mertz, doing what he did. I'm just going to run around and take a knee and time will expire. The Tennessee player clearly didn't like that. It's a cheap shot. I love to see an offensive lineman stick up for his guy. Micah Mazuka has been here all of 5 months. Love to see him stick up for his guy. But, buddy, don't need to punch plastic helmets with fists.
We're going to try to
love the intention.
We're going to try to get to as many of these comments and questions as possible. Again, if you like what we're doing at Gators Online on our YouTube page, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment. Also, again, you can get into Gators Online right now 1 month for $1. You can't beat it. So once we get you in, man, it's gonna be hard to get. It's gonna be hard for you to break away. Nick, let's get to some of these real quick. The guys showed up all over the defense. JC Bloom says everybody contributed. Hey, look, Steve Spurrier. I can't get that up. Steve Spurrier used to say statistics are for assistant coaches and losers, and I don't think he meant like losers. I think he meant people that lost games. You're looking for statistics to hang your hat on. So Tennessee ends up with more yards. But I don't think anybody has any real complaints about the Florida defense. The first drive wasn't great. Then there was a drive in the fourth quarter that wasn't great. But otherwise, they were pretty stout, and they forced a turnover, which they were going to need. They were going to need a turnover in that game. I thought I was very sure of that. Key sacks and key pressures in the first half. I want to say 3 times in the second half they forced a turnover on downs with Tennessee. So that was I don't know, is inflection the right word I'm looking for? That was a big moment, a seminal moment for that Florida defense, I thought, in a group that's still young and trying to, kind of take that moonshot.
Yeah, I think the interception, a ton of credit to Des Watson. Just picked up another Division I athlete and threw him into Joe Milton. Joe Milton had gone like 248 straight passes without throwing an interception. But I thought Florida would need to get one. And Devin Moore, an incredible return, bobbing and weaving and going from one sideline to the next, getting Florida into great field position there. Florida's interior defensive line was really good. And I thought Armstrong and Coach Chaos had a great plan. Tennessee goes so quickly that you could have gotten trapped out there. And anytime Tennessee would have one guy run off the field, a wide receiver try to sneak off, Florida was moving guys in and out. And if you go and look, I put up the participation report and the snap counts. all of those interior defensive linemen were like 30 snaps, and Tennessee had 64 snaps total. So they did a really good job of making sure those big guys inside were fresh and not leaving Cam Jackson and Des Watson out there for 6, 7, 8, 9 plays in a row. As soon as you had an opportunity, hey, get a new guy in. So shout out to Chris McClellan, Jamari Lyons, Cam, and Dez. I think Florida's interior defensive line played a really good game. And Princely Umumielen kind of got on him a little bit after Utah. Like, where are you? You wanted the number 1 jersey. Where are you? I thought he had a really, really good game against Tennessee. And on a 2-point conversion, Joe Milton's big and fast. And Princely got an angle and chased him down, got him out of bounds. Really good game for Florida's defensive line as a whole.
Yeah, that was a heck of a play. Quick comment from Jim Martin. Tennessee shows that they're blaming everything but their own mistakes, which is really what cost them. Actually, Jim, it's funny. I went through all the quotes that they gave last night. It's the opposite. They did blame only themselves. And I know sometimes fans get upset with that too, because you're like, well, why aren't you giving my team credit? You know, they had something to do with your mistakes. To me, Nick, it's kind of funny. This was the Florida-Utah game in reverse, almost identical. One team shooting itself in the foot with the repeated penalties and the noise and the circumstance. One team getting a big lead at the half. Now, obviously, Utah was only up 17-3, but it was quickly 24-3 in the third quarter. And then the team that gets the big lead sort of shuts it down on offense and just says, "Hey, let's just not gift wrap the touchdown for the other team.
Right.
Let's be conservative. Let's get out of here with the win and not do anything ridiculous." So it was kind of a tale of two similar games there. But let's see. Let's go through some more.
That was a big question for me too. Listen, Joe Milton has only really been a starter one time, and that was in 2020 when the Big Ten had no fans. So I thought, look, Florida went out to Utah and had a bunch of procedural issues in their first road game. Would Tennessee have that same thing? Florida played 12 on 11 last night. Tennessee fans will say that the 12 is the ref. I say it was the fans. The Swamp was fantastic. You can't convince me that the stadium did not have an impact on the game last night.
Well, yeah, here's the thing. I mean, some games, there are games. Did Boston College have 18 penalties against FSU yesterday? But then I watched some of the game.
At home.
Yeah, I watched some of the game, and I got to say, I mean, they were the ones jumping off. So, I mean, it's not like, so it's not like the refs were just looking for it. They had 3 guys false start in the same play. They're going to call it. And I think so Tennessee had, let me get to their stats here. I'll tell you, Tennessee last night had 10 penalties for 79 yards. Well, so many of those, Nick, at least half of them were pre-snap penalties. Well, that's not really a judgment call. The whole stadium sees you move, they're going to call the penalty. So I don't know how you can blame the refs for that. Now, other things, sure, there's judgment calls. They didn't call hold here. They did call one there. They didn't call pass interference. They did call. I get all that. But the pre-snap stuff, which included, by the way, not just false starts, and I believe one delay a game, I can't quite recall, but also, how about that defensive offsides on Tennessee when Florida clearly wasn't going to snap the ball in the fourth quarter? And that gave Florida a first down. So, you can't blame the refs for that. That was self-inflicted right there. Now, they might not have won anyway, but it was kind of similar. I mean, Florida, after the Utah game, said, hey, all this was self-inflicted. But, you still got to give the other team a little bit of credit, too. But, all right, let's get to some more comments here.
Well, there's one up here from my guy, Chris. Chris is always in these.
All right, where's that?
I believe he asked if I believed that Florida is an 8-win team. I'll put it up there.
Good one. What do you think, Nick?
No, I don't think Tennessee's good. I don't think Tennessee is a top 10 team. And I think they were like 15, 12, 11.
Negative Nick's back. Okay, go ahead.
I'm back. I think Florida had a great game plan. They executed. I don't think Tennessee's that good. And I think we'll see that the rest of the year. Florida has to get wins early. I think if they would have lost to Tennessee, then I would have had trouble getting to 6. I think Florida's a 7-win team. If you sneak a win against LSU or FSU at the end of the year, maybe 8. But I think it's still probably 7-5, and that's going to be a good year. Like, the guys that are playing and contributing are freshmen and sophomores. This is a year that Florida needs to get those guys experience to get them ready for one of the hardest schedules I've ever seen next year.
Hey, by the way, not easy in 2025 either, because you have the return game at Miami, if my memory's right. So Nick, I know you're really starting to like what you're seeing out of Austin Armstrong, the 30-year-old defensive coordinator out there. Good guy. We've been lucky enough to talk to him in one-on-one settings, and just me and him, probably you and him chatting. I know Zach Albaverdi, who works with us, did a great feature on Austin this summer. Young guy from tiny York, Alabama, near the Alabama-Mississippi border. Loves NASCAR, talks faster than I do, 1,000,000 miles a minute, super hyper, super energetic. Maybe just what the doctor ordered for this program. You know what I mean? But in-game adjustments, specifically, JR asks, did you, obviously after that first drive, what'd you think with the in-game adjustment elements there, Nick? And I know it's hard to watch every little thing during a game, but did you see anything?
Yeah, I think he does a really good job. His energy is something Florida needed. And I think the players kind of embody that and mirror that. I think he is really good at matchups. He's going to trust his guys. Like Florida was on islands yesterday, but you needed to be. So even when Jason Marshall gets burned, I think you caught that pick play that they ran on the first drive to score Tennessee. I think you caught that in real time. But yeah, I think Austin Armstrong, like, enjoy him while you have him. Like, this is gonna be a head coach soon. With like his 5-year plan is probably he's going to be a head coach at some point. He is the rising star that we were told Patrick Toney was going to be, and I'm excited to see what his defenses look like. Yeah, Florida's going to continue recruiting guys, and something I caught on my second watch of the game, Keith, that I really really liked. Jakeem Jackson gets burnt, gives up a huge play, hanging his head, and Jordan Castell is one of the first guys over there, grabs him by the face mask, picks his head up, and is talking to him. That's one freshman to the next freshman, so I really enjoy that.
I mean, Nick, I'm happy for the Gator fans that Florida's winning. My phone, the battery, though, I mean, it's nonstop texts, questions. Everybody is just pumped. And if you do what we do, it's good to know people care what we're writing and saying, quite frankly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but hey, here's an interesting question, Nick, or comment from Jim, who's gotten up here a couple of times. Kentucky's important because Florida needs to establish road dominance. I don't know that dominance is a word I would use with this team right now at this point in time. First, you got to kind of get over some humps. And I think that's really maybe what you're saying, Jim. And yeah, that's going to be significant. Because you think you're going to beat Charlotte. If you beat Kentucky, you're sitting at 4-1. With winnable games ahead, but also some games that now, you're thinking 50-50. I mean, at South Carolina, okay, they're 1-2, but that's going to be a difficult place to play. At Missouri, late in the season, Nick, we've talked about this. It's going to be cold. It's going to be, whatever. A funky game with FSU sitting, right after that game. Missouri's 3-0, big win yesterday, but I don't know, but Kentucky, that now becomes as important as yesterday's was. That's the next big one. So that's now that's the most important one as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, Kentucky looks bad. I think Kentucky's winning, but not winning well. I don't know that Devin Leary's been what they expected him to be. I think that's still going to be a tough game for Florida. It's going to be a road game. It's not officially basketball season until Florida beats Kentucky, typically in Lexington. But I just think Mark Stoops is really good. I've watched him coach circles around Dan Mullen, who I think is a great game day coach, a great X's and O's guy. And I watched him coach circles around Billy Napier last year. It's a big team. They're going to be jacked up. That's going to be a really big test for Florida. Florida hasn't lost 3 to Kentucky, I think, since the 50s. I've been pretty bullish on thinking Florida will lose to Kentucky. I'll reassess and we'll get that prediction in 2 weeks, but that's going to be a huge test for Florida. That's another road game. You didn't look good on the road at Utah. You've got to clean those things up. But yeah, Kentucky hasn't looked like the team I thought they would, or the team I thought they could be.
Is Billy looking smarter every day with this offseason transfer pickup of Graham Mertz?
Yeah. Graham is not sexy. But Graham is doing everything that Florida asked him to do at a high level. They're not asking him to be to put up, Shedeur Sanders 500 yards passing, run for 150. We need 7 touchdowns from you. But everything they asked Graham Mertz to do, he's doing at a very high level. And you can win games with Graham Mertz. And I said that all offseason. It's been such a roller coaster with Graham Mertz. Andy Jean came to Florida and goes, "This is the best quarterback I ever played with." and it was like, oh my gosh, Florida's back. And then the spring game happened, and the offense as a whole was terrible. And people are like, what are we doing going to Wisconsin for a quarterback? They can't even spell pass. This is terrible. The season's over. Fire Billy. And I think I've been like, just telling people like, hey, listen, he's going to be fine. Graham's going to be fine. The offense is going to be okay. And Graham has been better than I thought he would be. And I think I think he just understands who he is as a player, what his role is in the offense. He's not trying to do more than he needs to. And each game he's getting a little bit more confident. And I think you're seeing the offense kind of rally around him too, because he's only been here for a little while, but they look to him as a leader, and the team kind of follows Graham. I've been pleasantly surprised with how well he's played the first 3 weeks.
And you and Nick had heard, or excuse me, I always call you and Zach had heard during the offseason that this was a guy, and I'd heard it too, that they were blown away. Florida staffers, everybody at Florida were really blown away by how much time Graham Mertz spent at the football facility. He never left. He really immersed himself into the program, into the culture of the program, everything. And, culture is so hard to quantify. It's so hard. Like, we always say this, bad culture can absolutely cost you games, but does good culture help you win games? Or does good culture come because you're winning, or does it create winning? I mean, at the end of the day, you still got to have dudes, right? That's what I always say. So
Jimmys and Jones versus X's and O's. Yeah.
Hey, Nick, what's been the biggest surprise this season so far for you? Is it Mertz's emergence? Is there a position group that has been better than you thought? Is there any singular player that you're like, yeah, he's not bad. I didn't think this guy was going to be that great. Anything like that?
I think Jordan Castell earning the starting job, and then playing as well as he has. Like, played every snap yesterday. He's a true freshman in his first SEC game. Played every defensive snap. I think that's been pleasant to watch. I think the offensive line, I'm not giving up on them or anything like that. I think they played all right yesterday. That's certainly better than they played week 1. But I thought they were going to be really, really good. And we'll see. Like, then you need to play together. That's a position you have to play together. And that was that group's first time playing. The original 5 from weeks 1 and 2, now we're a new group in week 3. So I think Florida's kind of what I expected them to be. I'm definitely pleasantly surprised with Austin Armstrong. I kind of entered cautiously. Patrick Toney came, and every national media said this is a rising star, and then that defense stunk, and then they got the next rising star. So I was a little doubtful of, okay, well, let's see. But yeah, I'm all on board the Austin Armstrong hype train.
Yeah, I guess for me, I don't want to say I'm surprised by Mertz, but God, the kid just took an absolute beating on social media and on message boards from the moment he transferred. Look, Nick's sick. We're gonna have to keep an eye on him the next couple of weeks here. If he's not here next week, you'll know that he's no longer with us. I think Mertz. Obviously we're only 3 games into the season, but he's completing 75% of his passes. He's got 1 interception and 1 total turnover in 3 games, and again against 2 ranked teams. So he's not beating. And he wasn't the reason Florida lost that first game. He's doing enough, and I think yesterday he took a couple steps forward. He didn't just do enough yesterday. I think he kind of elevated that offense, quite frankly.
No, he certainly did. I mean, his pocket presence yesterday was really, really good. He's not he's not a great, he's not an Anthony Richardson runner. He's not a Michael Vick. He's not Peyton Manning back there either. I thought he was able to move. He extended plays. He makes smart decisions. Like, he's a veteran. The team follows him. And I think as he continues to have success, there's just even more belief in him. And sure, you can be really good in practice, and guys can say, okay, he's going to be good. It's different. Making plays in practice and making games on Saturdays is different.
Nick, you sat on one side of me in the press box yesterday. Corey sat on the other side, and we tried to leave you alone the best we could. But Corey and I made a number of idiotic comments throughout the game, more than I can keep track of. Okay, wrong about many. But one thing Corey pointed out, he said, this guy Graham Mertz, I mean, he's a 3-year starter at Wisconsin. He played in a lot of big games. I didn't win them all, but he also didn't have, NFL Hall of Famers on either side of the ball with him. I mean, but he played in those games. And when you look across the SEC landscape, there aren't many quarterbacks in the SEC right now that have played in a third of as many big games as that he's played in. So there is something that, he didn't win them all. I get it. Maybe 50-50 in them, maybe less. But he's played in them. He's been there. He's done that. So yesterday before the game, Nick, you and I noticed it was quite windy. The flags were whipping above the stadium. Now, I don't know what it was like on the field because the press box is high. But we started thinking, well, wait a second. This guy has played at Camp Randall Stadium in Madison.
Yeah.
He played in Iowa City. He's played, the guy's played in Columbus. He's probably played in Ann Arbor, Eastland, West Lafayette. He's played, I can name
that was
a
a light breeze. That was a light breeze in Wisconsin.
Probably nothing to him. So all these things that we didn't really think about, including leadership and experience, again, maybe that's what this young team with new players and transfers, and maybe he's that stabilizing.
He's a calming presence.
Yeah. Maybe that's what they needed. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, look, we know this isn't a team built to win 12 games. Probably right now. Hey, stranger things have happened, and the defense keeps getting better and better. Who knows, right? But he can certainly be a guy that can, we think now, sort of elevate them, not just be a guy that's just out there. Right.
I mean, I think he's. So I didn't bring it up before, but I think his arm talent has impressed me more than I thought it would. I saw some passes, in practice where I'm like, okay, he can spin it a little bit. He's really impressed me on some throws that, like, you've got to have some arm strength to get that ball out there. Throwing on the run, I thought he was sensational or fantastic throwing on the run yesterday. I didn't know that he would have that accurate and that strong of an arm, especially when he was rolling out. And I think that's been something that has surprised me a little bit about Graham.
All right. So we're looking at all these comments. I'm trying to get to as many as I can. Some says, hey, one guy's Q Lee says, I'm still kind of in and out on Billy Napier. Florida needs an OC, a passing game coordinator, special teams coordinator. I think these coaches, Billy Napier will evaluate things at the end of the season, see where they're at. It's tough. You kind of get married to the guys that have been with you for a while. It's difficult. Some of them are your friends too. Their families. Hey, we'll work through this. We'll get through this. Let's see here. I'm looking here. Let's see. We got any? See if we can find any good comments. Anything can happen, Keith. Most don't realize Keith, the talent that
you weren't here for this.
What's that?
I was on the Kyle Trask train early. Him and Felipe both showed up same spring. Felipe was the big, almost 5-star. Kyle Trask was someone they wanted to fire Doug Nussmeier over even offering a scholarship. And we watched him all spring, and I was like, dude, I don't know where this kid from Texas is, but the Texas quarterbacks can sling it. And I had a buddy who was a student manager at the time, and he and I were just like, dude, Kyle Trask might be that guy. And maybe he wasn't great in practice or whatever, but yeah, I was on the Kyle Trask train early.
Well, everybody's going to hang their hat on something, but that's actually not a bad one to hang it on. Are you the QB whisperer?
No, I'm the punter whisperer. I need to take cross shots to lunch and figure out what's going on with him.
Interesting point from Florida Rocks, man. Wisconsin held Mertz back, keeping him under center, running a 1970s offense. I mean, there's something to be said for that too. Maybe he's in the right fit here. We'll see. Hey, look, Nick, moving forward, and by the way, this is Keith Niebuhr, me, Nick Delatorre of Gators Online. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Nick's always telling me I don't do that enough. And again, go to GatorsOnline.com right now. We got about 20 recruiting updates just since yesterday, in addition to the great team coverage from Nick and Zach. $1 for 1 month right now. Or am I saying that right? $1 gets you 1 month. And but Nick, is this, we're still seeing this offense evolving. I mean, we don't know what if Eugene Wilson, the freshman receiver, doesn't get hurt yesterday. How does that, what changed after he went? In other words, things are still kind of moving here. They're evolving. They're changing. What would you like to see more out of this offense, in this week leading up to this big Kentucky game? What do you think they need to work on this week? Obviously, they worked on the run game against McNeese. and it seems to have paid off on Saturday against Tennessee. What do they need to kind of fine tune this week? What's important?
Yeah, this is now listen, it's Charlotte. You know, we're not going to learn anything in Charlotte against Charlotte. This is a thank you to Mike Hill for 30 years of service at Florida, who's the new AD at Charlotte. He goes and gets his first AD job, and it's, hey, here's a nice game check to come down to where you spent. I think he was at Florida from 93 to 2018, so there for a long time. You're not going to learn much. I would like to get – listen, I don't know if the SEC is going to retroactively suspend some people. What start Najee Harris, Jalen Farmer, start Damian George at right guard and let somebody else start at right tackle and mix some stuff around, get guys experience. I'm getting a ton of questions about Aiden Mizell. No, he's not hurt. He when Trey Wilson goes down, he's not that same type of player as Trey Wilson. He's long stride, fast. Trey Wilson's twitchy and fast. Different kind of player. But Andy Jean, Aiden Mizell, Jaden Robinson on defense. You've got a bunch of freshmen who I think could be great players that need to get some experience. This week is about, and Billy won't say this tomorrow, Keith. He'll get mad if somebody insinuates that Charlotte's not a good opponent, and they don't look at it that way. But Charlotte's not a good opponent, and I think you need to get some experience. And listen, we're 3 weeks into the season. Get some guys some rest before you have to go and play Kentucky.
Yeah. Let me get to this recruiting question really quick. Mr. Bird says, Keith, are you hearing anything about Florida flipping a DB soon? It's been a whirlwind 48 hours, as you can imagine, trying to keep track of everything. Where do we go there? I'm back. Okay. So I haven't heard anything specifically about a guy flipping, but Florida is working on some potential flip targets. One of them is Jameer Grimsley, 4-star cornerback right down the road from me at Tampa Catholic. He's committed to Alabama. He did go to the Bama game yesterday, but he does like Florida. He's still talking to Florida secondary coach Corey Raymond, and he does plan on attending a Florida game soon. Now, here's a DB that was at the game yesterday. We all need to be paying attention to it. His name is Antoine Belgrave Shorter. He's 6 foot, 175 pounds, plays at Mandarin High School in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, as of yesterday, and I got to check with him again, he did not have an offer from Florida, but they were evaluating him. He did get the game invite. He's committed to Penn State. If an offer comes to him, I think that's something you got to keep an eye on. He's 2024 as well. So both those guys I just mentioned, Antoine Belgrave, Shorter of Jacksonville, Jameer Grimsley of Tampa, both 2024. That's this current senior class. Guys committed to other schools that Florida's working on. There could be some others too. It's hard to keep track of everything sometimes. And we're going to make sure we get you all the latest intel this week at Gators Online. Nick, let's get you back in here. Let's see here. Let's see if we can see any comments. I'm going to try to put some of these up here. Somebody asked about who's the receiver that had the leaping catch yesterday. Was that Caleb Douglas again?
Khalil Jackson.
It was Khalil Jackson. Okay.
That was an NFL catch. I think he had 2 feet in. That was impressive. And then he's coming down just like, I don't know if it's like just ingrained in you, innate, or you don't have time to think about it, but his hands are up. He's going to come down on his right elbow and just like palms the ball with his left hand and lets himself fall instead of like possibly jarring it. And then the refs might say, hey, you didn't carry possession to the ground. That to me was savvy. Just being able to, hey, I'm falling down my right elbow, just move the ball, palm it. That's a really impressive catch. It's the only catch of the game. But Mertz gave him like a little thank you. That was like a pitcher when an outfielder makes a great play. Mertz was like, hey man, thanks for that one.
I'm looking at some of these comments. Here's one for you, Nick.
Yeah, Arliss Boardingham. I
had to throw that one up there. I know you get a lot of questions about him.
Yeah, I probably hyped him up a lot. I think the issue with Arliss is, I think, blocking. And if you say I don't care, let him go catch the ball. I think I've seen a bunch of times at practice when they're at either doing 7-on-7 or 11-on-11. Just like having to ask again, like, hey, what am I doing? And almost having to have like 2 huddles and kind of be like, hey, here's the play, Arliss, you're running a post. It's just the knowledge of the playbook. And I think, listen, he is a different kind of athlete than anyone in the room, but I know fans don't love Jonathan Odom. He can be plotting when he's running the ball, but like the dude gets open and he gets first downs. it might not look exciting, but he's been a very productive player for Florida this year.
Riddler says that 4-star running back Waltez Clark commits to the Gators. That happened yesterday. I believe we broke that commitment, in fact, but significant pickup. We mentioned it earlier this show. He's an interesting running back, Nick, because you can put him out at receiver too. You can kind of put him just about anywhere. So I like what he can bring to the offense. In other words, if you have a guy that can catch out of the backfield, but that's what he does best and doesn't carry it much, when you put him in the game, the other team's going to know what he's in there for, right? Mm-hmm. So you like to have guys that make it difficult to substitute for. And Waltez Clark definitely gives Florida, will give Florida some of that. Let's see some of these questions. How about Odom? He had a game. What do you think of Odom's play so far this year, the tight end at Florida?
Yeah, that's why I mean, like I mentioned that when I was talking about Arliss, like Jonathan Odom, not sexy pick, not like he just makes plays, and he's not the fastest. He's 9 months removed from ACL surgery. He needs to get better blocking. I think Florida ran a 2-point conversion where if he blocked, or maybe it was goal line, I can't remember. There was a play down the goal line. I think it was a 2-point play where if he holds his block, Florida scores. Yeah, it was the 2-point play because it was Florida's second touchdown when they went for 2. Like he still needs to be a better blocker, but like he's very reliable. He knows what he's doing out there. He's a veteran. I get that you're like, you want more explosiveness from your tight end, but he's reliable. I don't know how you would justify taking Odom out of the lineup right now to put somebody else in.
Nick, you're getting a lot of questions here, so just try to run through sort of these pretty quick. Jalen Jones, somebody wants to know about.
When's Jalen Jones coming, Sean?
Let's get on to the next one. Nick, cheers, Nick. How bad is Miami losing tonight? Oh, you're a Dolphins fan.
Miami's going 20-0.
Have they been to the playoffs since you were born? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I got blown out by the Ravens 1 year. That was there for that game, like 40-something-0. My dad brought me into this. Keith, he gets the 72 Dolphins. Had season tickets for that, and I get Jay Fiedler, Joe Philbin, Tony Sperano, Ted Ginn, and his family. I get a bunch of mediocrity.
Hey, Scooby Williams balling right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And Scooby's a guy who I'd written off, so eat my crow on this one. Scooby, I've seen Florida do this so much, and I never agree with it. Scooby was an edge rusher. He gets to Florida, and they're like, I love that you can get after the quarterback. What if we let you play middle linebacker? And then he kind of gets buried at middle linebacker. And then we get to spring, and they're like, hey, go back out to edge. And I'm like, he should be 30 pounds heavier by now, but you've had him play middle linebacker. And then the edge didn't work, and he goes back to middle linebacker. When I see him being thrown around, I'm thinking, oh, he's probably not in the mix. Scooby Williams has played his tail off this year. So I was wrong about Scooby. Read the tea leaves wrong on that one, Keith. He's having a great season playing next to Shamar.
All right, so they're saying he plays for Charlotte. I guess the Jalen Jones.
So, yeah, Jalen Jones is a 4-star quarterback that came to Florida. I will not be writing about Jalen Jones coming back to Gainesville after the way he left Florida. No.
We haven't talked about the secondary yet, really. Not that much. What do you think about those guys? I made some big plays last night. Gave up a few balls, but
when you're playing that when you're playing that style, you're going to give up some balls. And we said that. We said that going in, like you're going to have to commit somebody down to the box, force Tennessee to make Milton beat you with his arm. And listen, I've covered Joe Milton or been aware of Joe Milton since he was 15 years old in Orlando, coming up to camps at Florida. I understand why Tennessee fans were excited about Joe Milton. He had like the Anthony Richardson offseason. He goes to the Manning Passing Academy. He throws a football 98 yards. He's hitting, a moving golf cart 80 yards away. No one's saying like he doesn't have arm talent. No one's saying he's not big, fast, strong, physical. He's the same quarterback I saw as a junior in high school. Like he's going to have accuracy issues. He's not turned the corner like Tennessee fans wanted to tell you. Joe Milton is a good quarterback, but like that's what you saw on Saturday. That's Joe Milton.
Hey, Nick, we're getting real quick here. We got to go in a couple minutes here. We're getting some questions on Kamari Wilson or some comments. obviously that Florida's loaded in the secondary. What's the status with him right now? What's the situation? Is probably not making the impact that I guess people thought
he didn't play on defense. Yeah. I mean, Jordan Castell's better than Kamari Wilson. I think Kamari flirted with the transfer portal this offseason. Florida has thought about moving him to linebacker. He has no interest in that. So if the season plays out the way it is right now and Kamari's not playing, I would not be surprised if he decided to leave after the year.
Okay. Interesting stuff. Cornerbacks young. They are. Yeah, Florida does have some young guys. I keep hearing so many good things about those guys, though. I guess if there was one criticism of them, I think there were some chances last night, some clear missed tackles by the young guys in the secondary that could have proved costly.
Mm-hmm.
A couple times led to first downs, Tennessee in the second half. But overall, I mean, hard to be too critical. I mean, they've got Ramel Keaton, Brew McCourt. I mean, Tennessee's got some dudes at receiver, right? I mean, that's what they do. That's who they get. So, all in all, a good win. Let's just put up a couple more comments here. I think that's probably about it, Nick. We had some technical issues earlier. I didn't know what I was doing. You sneezed. We thought you had maybe.
I'm dying over here.
Yeah, I mean,
I hope I didn't get you sick sitting next to me.
I hope you didn't get me sick through the computer right now.
Yeah.
But listen, again, if you like what we're doing, like it, subscribe, leave comments. Tell Nick how great he looks, that he's, Clooney-esque behind the camera here. But we appreciate everybody stopping by. We're trying to do more programming, more live programming, too. We want to get all of you involved. Go to GatorsOnline.com right now. $1 gets you 1 month. And, we think you're going to like it. We think you're going to like the community we built over there and the great intel and coverage, both at the team and recruiting aspects. For Nick Delatorre, I am Keith Niebuhr. We appreciate everybody stopping by. Y'all take care. Have a great week, a safe week. We'll do it again soon. Take care, everybody.